Hey, everybody. What's up, hackers? All right. Well, hey, everybody. I'm Bill Swearingen. Today, we're going to be talking about hacking anonymously. Thanks for coming to my talk. I appreciate it. A little bit about me. I've been doing this for a long time. So I've kind of been in the hacking scene really before I even knew that I was in the hacking scene. I was kind of just thinking back, like, okay, so when did I really kind of get into hacking? And I can kind of really put it down to, I remember when I was probably about 12 years old, I got on my bike and I rode it to a payphone and redboxed a phone call to Nintendo for the helpline, right? I think that's kind of where I started. At that time, I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't really know I was hacking, freaking, whatever. And that really kind of got me into this. Like, I really need to understand, really need to explore and, kind of tinker a little bit. So for those of you that don't know me, I've spoke at DEF CON. I am a founder of SecKC. Let's hear it for SecKC if anybody's heard of him. Nobody? Okay, well, a couple, great. And I started the Kansas City hackerspace as well. So that's just a little bit about me. So real quick, a quick disclaimer. Look, we're not here to be criminals. I'm not here to teach you how to break the law, right? What I'm here to do is to help educate a little bit. I'm not here to be your mama either. So whatever you want to do with this information, I don't care. I'm here because some of y'all are idiots. And I mean that. Okay, but no offense to the other ones. So a little bit more about me. So in my working career, I've done a lot of the same things you all have done. I've worked on the help desk. I've worked on the blue team. I've been on certs. I've been on threat intel teams. And ultimately, where I ended up was I was the CISO for one of the world's largest telecommunications companies. And so when I have some, let's say, background in investigations, believe me, I do. After working for the telco, I went to IronNet, and I was the lead responsible for all of our high-profile investigations in IR. Since IronNet, I've left. I've started my own company with a couple founders, and we provide cybersecurity services for ultra-high net worth individuals. So, just that's a little history about me. But one of the things I really, really want to convey to you, so if you only take a couple things away from this presentation today, is that we truly are living in a very interesting time in history. Okay, so one of the things that you probably already know, but I really want to make sure that I hammer home, is that the capabilities that are available to our governments across the world are simply unbelievable. Okay? Think about what we learned from the Snowden revelations, and they've only gotten better over time. Okay? If you take a look at what's happening in Ukraine or in China, we are seeing massive governments putting in a lot of restrictions and a lot of, just trying to hold down the community, right? And so what we've seen over the last couple years is we've started to see the community rise up. Right, so not only are we in a point of time where we have extreme government oversight, but we also have the hacking community rising up and creating our own tools and our own capabilities to thwart a lot of the protections or the restrictions that are put in place, and they're available to us on the internet fairly as a U.S. citizen, pretty easily able to get. And so I just kind of wanted to go through some of those with you. So I just want to make sure that as we talk, I put this presentation together using a lot of resources online with a little bit of my background to say, yes, this is a good idea, or hey, this is how I would do that. But I'll call those out as we go through. Okay, actually, before we move on, okay, I can kind of see the crowd. Is this anybody's first SAINTCON? Wow, look at that. Okay, this is my first SAINTCON too. And so I just want to hear it. Like, let's put our hands together for the SAINTCON orchestrators. What an amazing conference. I got to tell you, I was simply blown away at this conference, and I really appreciate SAINTCON for putting this on. Okay, so first things first. Now, this is the basic of the basic, right? We're going to get a lot more deeper into this, but as everyone probably in this audience is aware, is your IP address, what you connect to the internet, is your identifier, right? If I know your IP address as an investigator, more than likely, I'm going to be able to get your identity. I'm going to be able to identify you, and I'm going to be able to high-five myself, investigation done, right? But one of the things that you may not know, is that your internet service providers, again, I worked for a major telco, they can see everything that you do online. Everything. In fact, so a lot of the times, what we would do is think about, in that last mile, we would have taps right where your router connects to our network. We would have taps there where we would gather statistics, okay? And it would be all the things that you can imagine, right? It would be more around for performance or just statistics and those kind of things. But they're very valuable investigations. But just before we get going on, please make sure that you're aware that your ISPs, they can see every website that you visit, the time that you spent there, what kind of content you're watching, the device that you're using, and your geographic location. So specifically, as we start talking about ISPs, think about in your home, when you're connected to your ISP of choice, whatever that is, the device that you're using, right, that's leased from the company, maintains logs, okay? And so there are ways when you start thinking through this, right, that you can remove your device's MAC addresses or addresses from that device. You could have your own separate network underneath the ISP delivered router, right? But we'll get into all that here in a little bit. But the point that I really wanted to tell you is ISPs usually retain records of devices and IP addresses for about 7 years. Okay, and so that would be the lease times, the lease IPs and the lease times that you had, the devices that connected to that router that they provided or that device that they provided to you. But also, when we start really looking at the capabilities that are available to us as investigators, social networks usually keep them much longer, right? Usually it's indefinite. Keep that in mind as we move forward. So, okay, what's our first path as a hacker and we want to start becoming anonymous online? Well, we already know, we're going to obfuscate our IP address, right? And one of the things that you may not recognize, some of you do, of course, but your DNS request, you also have to have a strategy for, number one, obfuscating IP address, we'll get to that, but also into your DNS request as well, right? So ways that we can do this, I'm not teaching anyone new here. Hey, we can just join a public Wi-Fi, right? Then I'm using Starbucks IP address. I'm using Starbucks DNS, maybe, right? Of course, I can use Tor, right? And then maybe there's a VPN that we're leveraging. Well, I'm just going to tell you, none of those are perfect, and we'll go into all of the reasons why in today's talk. But never, ever, ever hack from home, okay? Ever. I'm just going to tell you, if you are committing crimes from home, hacking or whatever, you're going to get caught, right? So my advice to you is to never ever hack from home unless it's authorized, right? Or it's some TLC home improvement bullshit, right? So hard house hacks, whatever. Okay, so how did this talk even come together? And I'm not kidding you. This is exactly how this talk came together. I was sitting on my couch, and I have a cat. And the cat was on me or whatever, and I'm watching YouTube, and every single YouTube video is sponsored by some VPN company that is claiming that they're completely 100% anonymous, they're secure, they don't keep any logs. The second you disconnect, they light the data center on fire, and everything. I'm just like, bro, it's not how it works. So just if you take a look at this, this screenshot here, this I didn't put this together. I literally pulled this off of YouTube. from a VPN provider. And they basically, if I can look at this, it's basically saying that if I use their VPN, I'm protected against all cyber criminals and all the governments, and I can just use the internet, right? Well, I don't think that's right. Okay, so one of the things when you're using a VPN, think about how did you buy this VPN, right? Did you connect to starvpn.com from your laptop that you always use, from your home Wi-Fi, right? Did you use your credit card to buy this VPN? All right, so just think about it. When we really start putting together like our threat model about what the VPN provides, right? You also need to think about what information of you do they have. Now, when we start going into VPNs a little bit, no matter what VPN providers say, and I don't care, I don't care what they say, they do retain some sort of logs. Okay, let me give you a good example. All right, who here has ever worked in IT? Right, everybody, right? Okay, so you get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning and says, "Hey, this really important user of ours that pays $5 a month, their VPN isn't providing, isn't working correctly, and I need you to diagnose it." Sorry, boss, we don't have any logs. Right? They're keeping some sort of logs, right? They're also, how do they, of course, there's probably logs about when you log in, how long your account lasts, all of these different things. But most importantly, the thing that you have to understand is that these VPN providers are companies, and they are located in countries that have laws, right? And regardless of what statements they make, when it comes down to it, your $5 a month is not worth losing their business about. So let's put it to the test, okay? Let's actually think about, and let's look at history of how well these service providers have protected us, okay? I know you probably in the back probably can't read this, but we all love Proton Mail to send out our spam, right? Well, in 2021, they logged IP address of a French activist and turned it over to the authorities, right? I'm not going to go through all of these, but we've seen Windscribe, double VPN. We've seen Tutanota many times be leveraged, which is a Germany-based company that screams privacy, has been compelled to provide information of their users. Okay, so just keep this in mind. And look, again, don't be criminals. Don't cause people problems. But also recognize that these VPN providers, they're not providing you they're not making you anonymous. They can be compelled to disclose who you are. So let's talk about some good VPN advice, okay? So first of all, and I've already mentioned the threat model, but one of the things that you need to think about is, okay, what is the purpose of you using this VPN? And I know that many of you in this audience are probably way more technical than I am when it comes to networking, but what is the purpose of using a VPN, right? It could be a couple different things, right? It could be to protect your local your traffic on this local network, right? It may be that you need an exit point in a geographically different area, right? But is it to become anonymous? No. So really, you're moving your exit node onto the internet to a different location, right? Maybe as a previous ISP provider, you don't want me to know what YouTube videos you're watching, right? So think about what your real threat model is with a VPN provider, and then implement a counter strategy accordingly. Okay, so if you're truly after a somewhat anonymous VPN, subscribe to a VPN using Tor, right? Never connect to it from your home IP address, and find a VPN provider that would accept a privacy-based cryptocurrency such as Monero or whatever. And so the only reason I would suggest this is like, okay, so let's just say you just got done hacking whoever, and they tracked it back to your VPN provider, and they then were compelled to deliver whatever logs that they had. You want to make it as difficult as you can for them to identify you. Their IP address, it looks like it was a Tor node. They used Monero as payment. Their user ID wasn't Bill Swearingen, right? Like make sure that you're like think this through. Also, do your own research about VPN providers and never ever tell anybody, hey, I use this VPN service, right? Just come on, good upsec there. Okay, so VPNs, look, you're elite, use Tor, all right? Okay, we're going to get much more into Tor here in a little bit, but if both, I just want to tell you right away, and Tor, the Tor project is fantastic. I love the Tor project. There's been a lot of disinformation that has come out from governments about using Tor, right? If you really want to see disinformation, go look at people that talk negatively about Tor. Some of it may be good, I don't know, but yes, there are strategies that governments take to de-anonymize Tor, right? If there is a suspect, if I believe that you are the suspect in this case, I can monitor the time of access and the amount of data that gets brought into the Tor network and it exiting. If I monitor to those two things, I can start to de-anonymize you there. There are strategies that can be in place that can be used to de-anonymize Tor. Like I said, we're going to come back to that here in a little bit. I just want to tell you it's not bulletproof, okay? Okay, I know I've already said this. I'm just going to keep saying it every slide, but if you take away nothing, this is the rant part of the talk, and this is what my favorite part where I just get to go up here and like yell at you. Okay, so do not hack from home. You will make a mistake, all right? How many times, like, you criminals been there and you look down and wire guards disconnect and you just start panicking because, like, when did it disconnect, right? That's not how you're going to get caught. You're going to get caught because you're using the same laptop that you use for work. You're using the same laptop that you use for home. You're going to, like, accidentally be logged into Instagram or Facebook or Google or something, and this is how you're going to get caught. No matter how much energy you put into having a different identity using VPNs and Tors, or Tor, this is how you're going to get burnt, okay? And I'm going to tell you a strategy on how to get around this, but all of these social networks, number one, they retain information about your computer and your habits indefinitely. They're using that information to make their networks better, all right? And the minute that you log in to one of these services, and you don't even really have to even log in. If you were just to hit an asset of one of these, you go to a website that has a Facebook login button, just that action, if you're using a laptop that you've previously logged into Facebook with, that's all that we need in order to start de-anonymizing you, right? So do not hack from home. You will make a mistake. And when you look down and you see that you're logged into Google on this laptop, even though you're using a Tor browser or Brave browser or whatever, you look down and you see that you're logged into one of these services, I just got to tell you, you're burned, okay? So, like, you're just, it's the end. And so you really need a different strategy on how we're going to do this. Okay, so how do we stop that? Well, first of all, you got to remember your OPSEC. So I just want to tell you something. If you haven't seen this already, your computer, your main computer that you use, it stands out like a blinking light to everyone. It looks just like Jason E. Street's luggage at SLC International. Like, and if you haven't seen it, like, you can see, this belongs to somebody. This belongs to a hacker. Okay, we all know this. Hopefully, you guys can see this, but without any tricks or without any tricks. The site or the asset that you are accessing remotely is obviously able to, in order for you to connect to it, obviously it has to be able to get to your IP address, right? And we all probably know that IP addresses can be geolocated pretty succinctly now, right? So I don't know if you can see this, but this is, I just went to privacy.net, and it showed me my IPv6. And it also told me that I was located in Lenexa, Kansas, and I was using Charter Communication as my ISP. It told me my browser, and it told me my OS, right? We pretty much all know this, okay? That's not a surprise. But again, using very, very similar tricks, we're able to fingerprint these computers without running any code. So without running any code, this website, privacy.net, was able to create a fingerprint that would individually identify this laptop right here without storing any cookies, without running any code locally, because of my the browser that I'm using, the OS that I'm using, the screen size that I'm using, et cetera. It's able to provide a fingerprint of this specific machine that could be used to identify me later. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Even if we were to have gone through everything with the VPN, right? We super hackers. We went to Starbucks, and then we connected to Tor, and then we bought a VPN with Monero, and then we connected to that VPN, and then we hacked Sony. That doesn't change the fingerprint of this device. That's still being communicated, okay? So that route to the internet, even though we did everything to protect our OPSEC, just because we forgot about the fingerprint of our device, we can still be identified, potentially, okay? So keeping going, we live in a very modern age that you should know that your OSs are spying on you, all of them. Like all of them are spying on you. And so there are a lot of physical identifiers that you need to have a strategy on how to protect when you're online and if you want to stay anonymous. Of course, the ones that everybody knows is our MAC address or Bluetooth addresses, right? But did you know that your CPU has a management platform that has been remotely compromised? The Intel management platform has been remotely compromised before. There's been some exploits for that can read all of those addresses remotely, right? OS is keeping, like Windows and Mac are keeping telemetry on how you use that machine. A lot of applications do as well. If you were to buy a MacBook, okay, actually, let's rewind. We're going to I got this brand new M2 laptop, and it's replacing my last MacBook. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe that MacBook, that original one, and I'm going to use it as my hack top so that I can hack all of these companies. Guess what? Apple already knows who this MacBook was registered to, right? So you got to be very, very careful when you're working with a laptop or a computer of any ways that's been activated with Microsoft, that's been registered with Apple, right? Though just because you've formatted that machine and maybe registered it with a new person or a new identity or whatever, that doesn't negate the fact that that evidence still remains that machine may have belonged to you in the past. Okay. Let's see. Also, did you know that most laptops, even when turned off, keep the BLE radio still on? So even if your laptop was turned off, your laptop, your phone, whatever, may still be beaconing for Bluetooth low energy, right? And so what this could allow to happen, or what the investigators could use there, is was this device anywhere near this area? Even if I had it turned off, it still may have pinged the Bluetooth, and we could identify that machine as being local during a certain time. So really the best advice I can give you here is in the event that you want to stay anonymous for whatever reason, maybe it doesn't have to be malicious reasons, that there could be media reasons, or you just want to stay anonymous, is buy a laptop with cache that cannot be easily identified to you through whatever the local marketplaces are that you have here, and also never ever use that machine. Never connect that machine to your home Wi-Fi, right? Create a completely separate identity that when you're using that machine, you act as a different person. That way you kind of negate that whole logging into Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. But just keep that in mind, okay? okay, so I kind of already touched on this, but let me tell you something. These things, these phones right here, for whatever reason, let's say that you wanted to communicate, you're in a media unfriendly part of the world, and you want to make sure, and you need to get a story out or something. Well, you know that your phones are tracking you. Okay, so and I love it. Like one of the best things, like I love that my phone, I can go see, like, oh, where did I go last year? And you know, I can see all the places I've been. We all know that it's doing it. It's okay. You can turn it off if you want it. But the best plan here is if you have a smartphone, get a burner phone, and leave your smartphone at home, and leave it playing a video or something, so you can build in some reasonable deniability that you were not in these locations. One of the things that I just think that most people don't understand, probably to the level that this is happening, is that private companies have access to this geolocation, and can determine if any device was in an area at any certain time. Let me give you an example of how that works. So in the event that we wanted to track somebody down, we, through whatever means, we find that it's coming from this. It came from this Starbucks. This IP address. There are data sets that can be purchased. They're quite expensive, but available to private companies and governments, of course, that can show every device that was in that area at that certain time. So those are called geofencing warrants. See if I can get that word out. And they're starting to become very, very widely used. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you're going to be needing to stay super anonymous, leave your cell phone at home, please. Okay, so let's take a breather. I know I've been screaming at you here for 20 minutes now. Just a real quick recap. So have a dedicated computer, okay? If you truly want to stay anonymous, there's really nothing you can do with the computer that you've been using to make it move yourself to that level that you're looking for. So buy something dedicated. Like I mentioned, create another persona. That persona is the person that uses that other laptop. And that persona does not live in your house, so don't ever connect it to your home Wi-Fi. In the event that you're wanting to use a VPN, make sure you purchase it with Monero. Make sure you connect to it over Tor, and don't use social networks. Okay. Moving on, I do want to talk about real quick is building. So you've purchased that computer, and you want to start building it out. So to be a very clever and very resistant to investigation laptop. So my advice. Most of this advice came out. I have the link here in a little bit. Where they walk you through step by step on how to set this up. But this comes from the Hitchhiker's Guide to Anonymity for full setup. And there's some really clever reasons why we do these things the way that we do. Again, I did not create these, but I agree with all of the statements that were made here. So your base OS, Windows 11 Home. There's a reason. When you go into your BIOS or UEFI, make sure that you set up both set up passwords for everything, for boot up, for setup, and on hard drives. Disable Bluetooth in the BIOS. Disable any management interfaces that may exist in the BIOS. A lot of times you don't have access to this, but as you're installing your Windows Home, disable the OS telemetry. There's guides in there as well. And then finally, you want to use Veracrypt full disk encryption with plausible deniability. I'll get into that in a second, with memory encryption and memory wipe when you insert a USB device. Okay, so why Windows Home 11 or Windows 11 Home? Well, so a very interesting feature of Windows 11 Home is it does not come with BitLocker by default, okay? And so in the event that you can imagine, like someone were to steal your laptop, they believe that you have you're a reporter, and you've disclosed some information that you should have, and they take your machine from you, and the investigator goes to look at your machine, and they find Windows 11 Home, and you've got VeriCrypt installed. Right now, you have plausible deniability. If somebody would say, "Well, Bill, why do you have VeriCrypt installed on this machine?" And you can say, "Well, I take security very seriously. I wanted to encrypt my machine, and Windows 11 Home does not permit me to do this, so I went with a third party the third-party software to do that." Okay. Well, we're going to need you to decrypt your laptop, Bill. And I'm like, okay, well, because I've set up plausible deniability in VeriCrypt, I can, for those of you that have not seen that, it's basically, it's layered encryption. If you give one password, you get this result, and if you give a separate password, you get a completely separate result. That separate result could be your hidden OS, right? So it would look something like this. So you would have your decoy operating system, that being our Windows 11 Home, and then when you start to decrypt, if you were to give the plausible deniability password, it opens up that outer volume where you would leave some evidence for the investigators to find. Okay, it doesn't matter what. It could be documents, it could be pictures, or maybe like some movies or something. Something that you. Like, I didn't really want anybody to find the movies that I downloaded or whatever. But that exists in that outer volume. And it gives you some reason for you to have encrypted that volume. Meanwhile, you have a separate hidden volume that contains your actual operating system that you would be in your hidden operating system. Again, I don't have the time, nor am I going to talk you through the setup of this, but the Hitchhiker's Guide has step-by-step installation and configuration for all of these things. It's also worth noting that you need to be very careful about memory encryption, and so there have been attacks on this. You've probably seen that you can retrieve memory even when the machine's turned off, but VeriCrypt has ways of wiping the keys when your machine goes into hibernate, or when a USB stick is stuck in, and I would really recommend that you do both of those things. At the end, it's going to look like this, like your laptop is going to look something like this at the end. And I just kind of want to talk through this a little bit. So basically what we would have is in our decoy OS, we would disable all internet. All right, the way that we would do that is we would remove the gateway IP address from that Windows Home machine. We would then have that VeriCrypt set up in a way that we could run VirtualBox running off of that decoy OS volume, right? And then we would pipe all of our internet using a WAPX bridge over to Tor. All right. I understand this looks complicated, but it's really not that bad once you set that up. But what you've done in this setup right here is completely create a scenario where you're not going to make any mistakes, right? So you're forcing your connections over Tor, you're using hidden OSs, you're like doing super spy shit, and it's all fun. I know. That's a complicated slide, but believe me, it doesn't take much to get there. Okay, so I get this question a lot. So once I connect to Tor, should I add a VPN over Tor? So should I VPN over Tor, or should I Tor over VPN? And both of them are, there's yeses to both. Again, Tor is a fantastic capability, but again, it's really just changing where your IP address lands, right? So if you remember back when we were talking about the social networks and all of those kind of things, that's how you're going to get burned, right? Even if you're using Tor and you hit a Facebook login, it's going to de-anonymize you right there, right? So just make sure you consider that. But considering your threat model, so if you have established a Tor connection, and you're connected to Tor, and then you create a VPN connection, you're actually reducing the security of Tor. It bypasses Tor's